and analyze all that's happening in the world. We've got Jonathan Barratt joining in the show right now. Jonathan, hi, morning. Good to have you on the show. Let's first start off with these steel and aluminum tariffs, because that came out as a big shocker. It's doubled to now 50%. It's quite disruptive, and I guess it's going to put pressure on prices of both steel and aluminum. What is your own sense on how the demand-supply equation in the world is going to pan out now?
Look, I think it's quite interesting, but I think we've also got to understand that that's Trump. Trump comes out, he sort of changes his mind, he sort of comes out all fanfare, and all of a sudden he starts to back down. This is all about getting people to the table to negotiate. Remember, he has some concerns with China already, that they've broken some of the agreement. So by saying this, he's actually sort of turning around and saying, look, we've got to come to the table and actually deal. And I think that's how the market's going to look at it. But having said that, if you're working from 50% down to 25% lower, it is still an additional tariff. It is still an additional tax. And that in itself, I think, is an issue in terms of where you think with that supply and demand. And of course, I think the economy will start to suffer whilst these tariffs remain in play.
How would America benefit because of these tariffs? This is what I'm trying to understand. I mean, US steel is not very cost effective. In fact, they'll end up paying more for the same.
Look, I'm not going to argue with that. I think it's fantastic. I think you're absolutely right. But I think that trying to get more productivity out of the states in terms of its manufacturing is always going to be a problem when you've got a labour-intensive industry. And I don't think the states are ever really going to manage to get that happening. The tariffs is all about sort of trying to get income to help pay for the trade deficits and things that the states have. So that's what it's all about. So if anything there, I don't think it's going to be, it's meant to be supportive, but it's got to raise a lot of money in order to be supportive.
Jonathan, I'm just trying to understand how China will actually, play it out here, because Chinese steel mills will have to find new export avenues, right? And do you think that's going to lead to then significant dumping, including markets like India?
I think that's the case, because you've also got to think that the economy in China still remains soft. We just had some recent numbers, obviously, on last Friday. So when we actually see the economy remaining soft, we haven't got those green shoots of recovery. So if you still keep that capacity, and remember, we are going into the summer period, so we will sort of get reduced capacity. But if we do get increased capacity, China will have no choice but to sell it to the nearest bidder. So I do think that in itself becomes an issue there, unless she can really motivate her economy so that any excess can be used domestically.
So, Jonathan, as we look into the second half of this year, do you think the effect of demand because of tariff, because of uncertainty, because of yes, no, I don't know, will start kicking in? So far, numbers have been robust because stocking up has happened. Inventory levels have got created, which has led to an uptick. But once the sugar rush fades away in the second half, could we be staring at ugly numbers?
I think so. Yeah, I tend to think that this has been a slow burn, and we really haven't had the effects of not just the major trading partners, but the lesser trading partners, seeing these effects sort of trying to sell into their major markets. So when you look at the second, third, fourth tier economies, they're the ones that are also going to be affected more. So I think when we look into quarter 3 and quarter 4, that's when we'll start to see some of this flow. And remember, we're starting to see some of that flow when we know that the US has a problem in terms of funding itself. So that in itself is an issue. So I do sense that this is sort of like more the calm before we do get into some disruptive plays as the economy starts to work through all these tariffs.
Jonathan, so good having you on the show and trying to analyze, what exactly this tariff doubling would mean for the steel and aluminum industry worldwide. Having said that, when it comes to India...
If you like this video, then like, share and subscribe to ET Now.